Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn making his first comments about the Dontre Hamilton decision. He joins Mike Jacobs and Carol Meekins in our studio right now.
Thank you very much, Courtney and Steve, and thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being with us, Chief Ed Flynn.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with your general reaction to the DA's decision not to file criminal charges.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised by it. I read it, I listened to it as the rest of the world did for the first time, and it's clear to me that he obviously devoted a great deal of time and effort to this, studied precedent, applied applicable criminal law, as well as expert testimony, and so it's clear to me that his conclusion is based on the evidence, the testimony, and established law.
Now, you made a decision to fire Officer Manny, and that decision has caused some problems within your rank and file. How are you dealing with that today, Chief?
Well, what we try to do is make it clear to our officers that we expect them to be competent. We expect them to not only know the law, but also to know our procedure and not place themselves in jeopardy. The difficulty with the Manny case from my perspective was that he placed himself in a situation in which the use of deadly force was his only alternative. Now, that was strictly speaking legal, I understand that, but it was his decision-making up to that point that placed him in jeopardy and resulted in a death. The point I want to make, it's a very important point, we hold ourselves accountable, and accountability for a form of malpractice should be administrative sanctions and the civil courts. If every police officer or every surgeon faced only criminal charges for errors in decision-making, we wouldn't have any doctors and we wouldn't have any cops. So the question is, what's the appropriate venue to hold someone accountable?
Now that the full report is out today, are you still satisfied that firing Christopher Manny was the right thing to do?
I don't have any doubts on that. Doesn't mean I didn't agonize over it. But the point is, our profession, the police profession, has to start examining the decision-making that leads up to a deadly encounter, not just the deadly encounter itself. Particularly if we're dealing with mentally ill people. Their mental state is sometimes obvious, which this officer said at the time. In that situation, we've got to make a different approach, because a peaceful mentally ill person, depending on their demons, can become extremely violent and dangerous. And it's our job to lessen that possibility, not exacerbate it.
Now, a lot of people, Chief, have questioned the fact that Manny shot Hamilton 14 times, and that's a number that we keep hearing. And this has caused a lot of concern among everybody in the community that are listening to it. Just 14 times is a lot of shots. How would you answer those people who say that's just too many?
Well, I think you need to do is, obviously read the district attorney's opinion. In my day, I only had 6 shots. So the most I could do was 6 shots. Now, if I missed them all 6 times, I was in a world of trouble. Right now, we have 14, 15 round clips. You can fire a lot of them fast. As the DA said, the law says you can stop shooting when the person stops. And how many bullets you fire and how many times you miss and how many times you injure without doing substantial damage, again, according to his report and the autopsy findings, a lot of these rounds were not lethal rounds. And again, from a strictly speaking legal point of view or criminal law point of view, his use of force was within established law.
We've seen a lot of protests over the last several weeks. As recently as Friday, we saw protests that stopped traffic on I-43. What is your general reaction to the way the protesters have conducted themselves? And are you going to be taking a harder line on protesters who cross some line? Well,
it's not just a simple case of a hard line and a soft line. Our challenge is this. A lot of people are attaching themselves to the family to advance a wide variety of causes. And any quick analysis of who we're arresting indicates that the vast majority of people we're arresting were not closely involved in this issue from the very beginning. The challenge for us is manage the protests so they can make their point. And we've done that. 20 times we've done it without major incident. But once you cross the line into trying to disrupt society for your own purposes and literally risk health and safety, we've got to make arrests. And that's what we did Friday. If that happens again, we'll do the same thing. As long as we can help manage these demonstrations so the general welfare is not at risk, we'll try to create a climate they can make their point. But we're not going to tolerate law breaking that puts others at risk.
And Chief, what kind of evidence do you have that outside protesters have been a part of some of these demonstrations?
Well, 25% of the people we arrested Friday night were from out of town. All right? A lot of talk is, the fact the community. Well, the people we deal with in the community aren't showing up at these protests. People that are showing up at these protests are people we've never seen before. that we've never seen at a community meeting, that never make themselves known about real community problems. I mean, every single night this week, our officers are heavily engaged in at-risk communities that are bedeviled nightly by deadly violence. Every single night, okay? It's December 22nd. We've already had 15 shootings. We've already had, 25 shootings. We've already had 7 homicides, almost all of them in these disadvantaged neighborhoods. That's the real daily issue. And I've got protesters showing up who may feel very sincere about this, I don't know, but we've never seen them before. Makes me a little suspicious of some of their motives.
Hamilton's family today said they were deeply disappointed by the DA's decision. What words would you have to the Hamilton family today? Well,
they have many alternative venues still available to them. I would say I was deeply disappointed by the choice of words of Nate Hamilton. All right, when I hear him talking about, getting rid of the pigs, I'm in a time warp back to the beginning of my career. I remember the police assassinations of the early 70s. I was working. I was going to those funerals. Police officers were being murdered in some kind of faux revolutionary cause that felt justified by its own rhetoric. We don't want to go back to those days. No one deserves that. And I'm hopeful that he'll climb down from his emotional rhetoric today and get back to the concerns about his late brother.
Do you have a message for your police officers? Because these are tough times. We have seen it just the past few months, and it's got to be difficult just to lead the force at this time. What message do you have for them as they go out and try to protect the community?
I need them to remember, and I've said this too, remember that this community supports you. People of every neighborhood, every ethnicity, every race support you in your daily work. I get stopped every day on the street by people of every background saying, thank you, keep up the good work, tell your officers they're doing a good job, we appreciate them. They feel under attack right now. They can't turn on a TV without hearing some talking head railing about the police, as though every police officer in America is exactly whatever our worst example is. And that's just wrong. What I know is this: they've got a dangerous job, but a job that the community depends upon them to perform well. They'll be looking over their shoulder. There's nothing for it. But I know I can count on them, and I know our communities can count on them to protect them and do the right thing.
We're getting some breaking news that the U.S. Justice Department has apparently agreed to look into this particular case. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's fine. I've had conversations with U.S. Attorney Santel in the past. I welcome any external evaluation of our work. Certainly if the district attorney wants to look into, if the U.S. attorney wants to look into this particular case or look into the police department, we're an open book. And we've got a reputation nationally for progressive policing practices that's won awards. We're certainly happy to collaborate with our federal colleagues to see if we can do a better job.
And as you go forward and you look at Officer Manny, is there a chance that he's going to appeal? He has his plans to appeal. Is there a chance that he could possibly get his job back?
Well, there's an appeal process, so certainly there's a chance. Otherwise it wouldn't be a legitimate appeal process. So he can make application, there'll be a hearing, and the Fire and Police Commission will make a ruling, and if he's not happy with that, he has access to the courts, just like anyone else would that's displeased with the decision we've made.
One last question for you. What would you say to the people of Milwaukee who have watched all of this unfold over the last 8 months and probably have some concerns about what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours?
And what I would say to the citizens of Milwaukee is they can count on the Milwaukee Police Department to continue to safeguard constitutional rights to peacefully assemble and to demonstrate public concerns. And they can count on us to answer their calls for assistance, respond to their emergencies, and protect their communities.
Chief Ed Flynn, we appreciate you being with us this afternoon. We know this is a busy and difficult day, but thank you for taking time to speak with us.
Thank you.
We'll take a break and be right back.